Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. Glad you're joining us today. Today I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to pull an episode from our actual membership from way back in January, where I interviewed Rachel on the process of tapping trees and making syrup on a homestead level. She has been doing this for several years. It's something that they do up there, and I'm really interested in it. And so I interviewed Rachel on how to do it. The reason I'm kind of pulling some episodes. Last week we missed an episode. This week it's just been really, really busy. We in my family we had a funeral that we had to do and go to, and then we had just a lot of stuff going on with work and stuff around the home. And Rachel's been really busy with her new property, and they're trying to get things ready there to move in. So it's just a busy season right now for us. So I didn't want to go 2 weeks without a podcast, but we had this great episode from several months ago in our membership that we did on tapping trees and making maple syrup. And I thought this would be a really good one to kind of get out there before winter, and then people can start getting supplies if it's something they're interested in doing, and be ready to tap those trees when the season is right. So I hope this episode will give you some great information on that. This is definitely homestead level tapping trees. This is not for reselling the syrup and things like that. There's a whole nother level of syrup making that you get into when you're selling it. But this is definitely on a homestead level for personal use. And Rachel just has a lot of great information on how to get started with that and how to do it and the whole process of it. So enjoy the episode. I think it's a good one. Today, I'm kind of like interviewing you, Rachel, because we're going to talk about something I don't know very much about. I have studied it a little bit. I've actually had people on the podcast who've done it, and I've talked about it briefly. But this is something you've done some.
On a homestead level.
Not expert. Yeah, you're not an expert or professional, but you've done it quite a few times, and you know a bit about it. And that's tapping trees. We're going to talk about tapping trees today. And I guess I'm just going to be asking you a lot of questions about this, and seeing what you can share with us. Any kind of disclaimers you want to throw out there before we start?
Well, just that I never have done this to sell it. We are not professionals. We do this solely on a homestead scale for us to eat it. So if you are going to be wanting to seek this out as like an extra side income or something, you're going to want to probably go to like your state extension. I'm sure each state might even have different rules for it, but there is some things I know for sure there is parameters on how much sugar content is in it to be considered for, saleable. Because obviously with this, you could get sneaky and not boil it down as much and sell an inferior product that has more water in it, that kind of stuff. So anyway, solely for homesteading purposes.
Yeah. Now that's good information to have, because, everybody always looking for a little side income or whatever. So it'd be important to know.
I think it would be a great one.
What we're going to talk about may not apply to that. You may have to go deeper diving into that a little bit if you're going to do that. This is if you want to tap some trees and get started and enjoy some syrup from your trees, this will get you maybe thinking about that and started on that. But maybe something a lot of folks don't know is it's not just maple. Everybody thinks about sugar maple for tapping trees. How many trees are there that you can tap?
Well, so far that I could find, 27.
Now I knew there's a couple different kinds of maples I knew about, and I knew about birch. Okay. And that's really all I knew about. I didn't know about all the others.
Yeah. It's interesting because you can tap like nut trees, like black walnut.
Really? No, I didn't.
Which you would not think that would be one on the list because of is it jugular? Yeah, but you can tap it, and apparently it has its own distinct flavor.
Whatever it is. You got me confused about it. Which is it?
I don't know.
Juglone.
Because I've only read it. I haven't heard people say
I said it, but now I can't think of the word. That's crazy.
But there's 27 different trees, maybe more. So
I even seen on the list there's like some tropical. There's like couple tropical trees. Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
So I maybe since we're talking about the 27, I'll just read really quickly through the list. So there's obviously the sugar maple. There's a black maple, a red maple, a silver maple, a Norway maple, a box elder, which is apparently a maple.
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
Didn't know that either.
A big leaf maple, big tooth maple, Rocky Mountain maple, and this one I'm going to slaughter. A gorosei, which this is a tree that is part of the maple family that is tapped in Korea.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So some of these trees are we don't have here. We're kind of in the Great Lakes area.
Mhm.
Some of these trees, like the Rocky Mountain maple, obviously
don't
is
have
out
that,
in the
yeah.
Rocky Mountains. Yeah. So some of these trees are not native to where we live, and some of those places don't have the sugar maple. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then you move on to the birch species, which there's paper birch, yellow birch, black birch, river birch, gray birch, and European white birch. And those are the trees that we kind of both knew that you could tap.
Mhm.
But then apparently you can tap alder trees, which are part of a birch tree family. They're just kind of a cousin.
Mhm.
And then there's nut trees, black walnut, butternut, heartnut, warnut. Am I saying that correctly?
Don't know about
English
that one.
walnut, sycamore, linden or basswood, ironwood, hickory, and elm.
Elm and
then you can-
sycamore even on that list. Wow.
Yeah. And then of course there's the palm tree
Yeah.
that you can also. Now the palm tree was interesting. I had never seen it. So I put a video in the show notes. It looks like you kill that tree
Wow.
and then you tap it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I found a video, a very pretty detailed video of a lady doing it, and I have that in the show notes. But if somebody is in our southern, in the South, in the tropics, and they have that, apparently that tree produces tons of sugary syrup. Like it is way sweeter than maple syrup. Like,
Yeah, and that's
way,
what I
way
was going to say. The difference really, like why everybody puts the focus on like sugar maple, for example,
Yes.
is because the sugar content in that
Yeah.
syrup is a lot higher in the tap, the sugar water that you're getting from the tree, I guess would be the
The sap.
term. Yeah, the sap would be the highest of the sugar content. So all of them are below that one, I think. I think it's probably the highest, isn't it?
Sugar maple and which I did not know this, but the sugar maple and the black maple both have about the same sugar content. But
and
the black maple we don't have here. The black maple is in a different area of the country where sugar maple isn't. But so sugar maple, when you tap it, I think I had the percentage written down because when as a homesteader, we didn't worry too much about the percentage. But I believe it was like 2.5% sugar by the time it got boiled down.
Yeah.
And the other ones are like 1 to 1.5. They're not as sweet for sure.
So you're going to have to basically collect a lot more to get a gallon of syrup.
Well,
from a lot of these too.
Yeah, for some of these, and it depends on the tree, like widely by each tree. Sugar maples, it's 40 gallons of sap makes 1 gallon of syrup.
Yeah. How much?
That's a lot.
How many gallons will you get from one tree on average, would you say?
Well, from what I like, it just depends. It really depends. It depends on the size of the tree. It depends on the weather that year. And it depends on the conditions. I mean, if you're in a drought, that tree's not going to be sucking it up as much. But so what happens is in the fall, the trees start to store starches. And then they release those when the wood gets to be about 40 degrees. But then they stop releasing and it's 45. So that window is really small.
Okay. Ideally, if everything's working just right, you go out and you tap your maple tree. What can you kind of expect from it?
I think the average was 15 gallons per tap.
And you put more than one tap per tree. I don't know.
So
okay.
The smallest tree you should tap is a 10-inch tree.
Okay.
And from a 10-inch to a 20-inch diameter tree, you should only have 1 tap.
Okay.
Now, if you get bigger trees, you can add taps, but they say you should only add up to 3. Like 3 is the maximum you should add.
Okay.
To it. And each tap will provide, on average, they say 15 gallons. Now, there's been years where people have had 40 60 and even 80 gallons per tap.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you got to stay on top of it.
depends.
How long does it take to fill up, say, a 5-gallon bucket that you've
Oh,
got
my
set under
word.
that?
When we've done it, we've had anything from, man, is this thing working? And you're like tapping the tree, like, hey, what's going
I
on
don't even
here?
notice it drip.
Yeah, to anything from literally you can't keep the buckets.
Like turning on a faucet.
Yeah, like a
Wow.
little stream, like a pencil. I mean,
Yeah.
it really, really depends. So what happens is it likes temperatures, at least here. I have no idea if it's similar for a birch tree or if it's similar for like I've palm trees. I don't know
Yeah, Will.
exactly how
you
that
threw
works,
it out
but
there that it's one, but we don't know anything
yeah.
about that.
So here what happens is you want the temperatures below freezing at night, but above freezing during the day. And that's like the ideal time. Usually here it's February to March, and it usually lasts 4 to 6 weeks. But there's been years where it was much shorter than that. And there's been years where it's much longer than that. And that's why it's hard to say like exactly how much you get.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea of what one expects from a tree. So
yeah, but if you have a smaller tree, so in our yard, we have 1/4 of an acre. One of the trees died. It got, what do you call those dumb things? Those wood ants, carpenter ants killed one of the trees, but that was a pretty big old maple. We had 2 taps in that. We had 2 taps in one of our big out front trees, and then our neighbor let us tap her tree. And so we had, I think it was a total of 5 taps that we did the first time we did it. And now, of course, we just have the 2 smaller trees. And it kept us pretty busy, really.
How many gallons did you get? Roughly?
We ended up with about 1 gallon of finished syrup.
Finished from 5 taps?
Yes.
And
so 3 trees, you had 5 taps.
So you got about 40 gallons.
About
5 taps. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's what our pretty normal for us to get that if we do it here. Now out at our property, we have more maple trees, and
you could actually, if you had like one really big tree that had like 3 taps on it or something, you could get close to that on one tree.
Oh, you could. On a good year, you could get even more than that. I mean, on a good year, you could get a couple of tree out of one tree.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool, and it's the harder part is identifying which.
I see in your notes you said something about the crown. What's the deal with that?
That's what I was going to mention. So the bigger the crown of the tree, the more likely it is that tree is going to be a good maple syrup tree.
Okay.
That probably has a lot to do with how much movement there is in an up and down. And the amount of sugars it can store.
Let's say I got a couple maples and a birch on my property, and I want to tap them. Does it cause any damage to the tree? I mean, do they heal up fine? Can you overdo it, or can you, obviously you can overdo it, put too many taps in a tree, but I mean, if I tap it once a year, what's the dangers of tapping a tree? Can it kill the tree?
I'm sure it probably could, I'm sure there's people out there that say it could. I think if you probably have a diseased tree, it would be a bad idea to use it unless you don't care that it's diseased and you're going to have to take it down anyway. Mm-hmm. We've done our trees and we haven't had an issue. I know people that do maple syrup, and they've used the same trees for years and they've never had an issue. And
you pull the taps out when you're done, they just heal back up. It just basically seals up.
Just heals back up, and then it grows the next year. And so you're not going in that same row. You'll be going lower than it. I don't know. I've heard it can ruin. I mean, I've heard all these stories too, but I know people that have done it for years. Up here, maple syrup, we're not quite as big as it is in like Maine, and those areas, but
pretty big
it's
up there.
It's a big industry up here.
I think even in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, I think all across there, it's really kind of a big thing.
And these people up here, in fact, when we went to go get the poles that we went to get this last weekend.
Yeah.
It's a big maple syrup thing out there on the peninsula. Lots of maple trees out there. These people actually leave, which I'll talk about in a minute, but they actually leave the tubing, because some people have started using tubing. They actually leave it up.
Okay, what do you mean by tubing? Explain what that is.
So There are many different ways you can tap trees. One of the newer ways now is people will tap trees and they'll attach a tube to it, and that tube will run into a central storage system. So if you're doing this on a big scale, that's ideal. I mean, running through the woods collecting buckets, which we've done with people, can be a lot of work. So they attach the tube to the spile, which is what you hammer into the tree, is called a spile. And those can be plastic or metal. And then there's tubing. Usually it's blue. I've never seen any other color, but maybe. They attach it, and then they must put it into like 55-gallon buckets.
Okay.
Use gravity, I'm guessing, but maybe they use something more than gravity. We've always done it the old-fashioned way, just with the buckets. But a lot of people have switched to using the bags hanging on the tree.
Okay. Well, I guess what I'm curious about, if you did that, now this is more on a commercial scale probably, but the tree grows. So if you're leaving those in there, that tree, that's going to raise up with the tree, right? That's going to go up.
Yeah, I don't know if they leave the spile in there or if they just leave the tubing somehow attached to the tree to make it so they don't have to do it again. I'm going to have to check
Yeah, I
it.
was just curious because it seems like that would end up getting several feet in the air at some point.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know how fast maples grow. I mean,
yeah, I don't either. But yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd have to move it every 3 or 4 years or something.
I would guess that's it.
Yeah,
I would guess they do not leave the spiles in, but they have plastic ones too. And I put links to all this stuff in the show notes for people to look at the differences. So they have plastic spiles. They have I have stainless steel ones that will last forever. You do pay more for them, but you don't have to buy them again. They do have aluminum ones.
A little heavier duty too when you're tapping them in.
Yeah, and they have different styles. So the ones that you would put tubing on are a different style than if you're going to hang a bucket on them.
Yeah, the ones I've seen, I mean, it literally looks like almost like an outdoor faucet or something, like on your house, like you hook your hose to, but it's got like the little pointy end on it where you just kind of drive it in the hole.
Right.
Yeah. And then you just basically
the
turn the valve and
to look, they're basically still a tube. Like there's no open end on it because obviously you're going to attach that tubing to it.
Yeah.
So it just depends on which way you decide to go. The one thing nice, you can do the tubing on a small scale. So what some people will do with the tubing is they'll use the tubing not so much to run it through the woods like you'll see these bigger operations doing, but just so they can put a tube on it and just set the bucket on the ground.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing, like, to keep water and stuff from getting in the bucket, they'll like use a bucket with a lid, and then they'll have like almost like a bulkhead at the top on the side of the bucket at the top, and they run it into the side of the bucket. So it basically keeps water from, like, it rains or whatever, it won't get into the bucket.
So that's how we did it. We I think our buckets were 3-gallon buckets. We had 3-gallon buckets. We actually hung ours on the tree, which is the really old school style. These people so you can also run tubing down the tree to a bucket just sitting on the ground with a lid.
That's what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Which definitely does make it easier because sometimes those buckets get so heavy, especially if you're having kids help you or you're lifting hundreds of them. But you can put a bigger bucket down there. You can put a 5-gallon bucket down there, or you could even put a 55-gallon barrel if you wanted.
If you had a way to move it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so there's lots of options for it, but I'm sure that if it was done wrong, or you did too many of them, or you tapped a tree that was already struggling, it would damage the tree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have this question because I've never done birch trees. I have this question about birch trees because birch trees here have almost been wiped out.
Oh, yeah.
Because of a disease. So even though I have several birch trees and I love the idea of tapping them because I think it would be fun, I don't know if I will just because.
Just in case
it's kind of rare up
weakens
here.
them a little bit maybe. And
Yeah. Where up here, the maple trees there's so many of them.
Yeah, it's the same way here. We have a lot of maple. But we have a lot of these other trees on the list too. Well, let's get through the process of actually tapping. So you're going to walk out there with your drill, like a cordless drill and a 7/16 bit. I see you have as your bit size of choice, and your spile and a hammer.
So the supplies you need is a drill bit. 7/16 is what you're going to need just because that's the size the spiles are.
Okay.
And some places actually sell maple syrup bits. just so you don't go too deep into the tree. So they're the
Oh, say like a
exact
stop
length
on them. Yeah.
Yep. So they're the exact length that you need.
Nice.
And then you need the spile, which is what we were just talking about. The spile is the thing you put into the tree, and maybe a hammer or like a rubber mallet, because you don't need to. You can a lot of times just push it in.
Okay.
It just depends. You'll need the tubing, bags, or bucket. Whatever you have, you need to make sure it has a lid or nothing can, you don't want like bugs in there.
Right.
And then you're going to need holding containers. Do not underestimate how many containers you will need, because it is unbelievable. It's actually pretty, it's just fascinating.
Well, I mean, if you only
And
collect, 50 gallons, I mean, you need 10 5-gallon buckets. No,
Yeah.
you need more than that, I guess.
Yeah, and if you do more trees, you're going to need more. So just plan
you just
on the
don't
fact
know.
that
Yeah,
you're going to need
a couple
to
more than
store.
that.
Yeah, just plan on the fact that you're going to need to store on average, and I would bump it up. On average, you're going to need to have something to store 15 gallons in for each tap, and maybe more. I mean, you might want to bump that up just in case it's a really good year.
Yeah.
So
you got to have all those buckets got to be set up to run the line into.
And clean,
yeah. So I mean, there's a process.
A
You
little
got to
bit
have
of
some equipment.
process. So we actually ended up buying I prefer food safe. If I was people, I would use food safe. We ended up buying a food safe 55-gallon drum.
Yeah.
And then we would just dump the buckets into that. You're going to need something for boiling. Now, this is going to highly depend on how much you want to do.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it professionally, they get really technical about their pans.
Yeah.
Size and how deep the sap should be when you're boiling it. And we just did this Homestead level. I just used a huge stainless steel stock pot over a rocket stove that we made. And I'll show you pictures. They're really crude, but to us, this was Homestead. It wasn't about buying and spending a lot of money. It was just about doing something fun and getting maple syrup. So you're going to need a fire stove. It's really not recommended to do it inside your house because the amount of
I wouldn't.
The amount of humidity you're going to be creating.
Yeah, for sure.
Because sugar maples are 40-1, but your birch trees are 110-1.
You're doing a lot of boiling down. Yeah.
So it's suggested you do it outside. You're going to need some kind of filter to filter it through.
Now, what's that like? What kind of a filter are we talking about?
You can use special like a coffee filter, but they do sell these special cone filters that you can use.
Okay.
There's a link in the show notes, and then the picture that I'll show you that will attach to this.
Is it more like is it
one of those?
Is it really I mean, you're saying coffee filter. I'm thinking real fine filters, but is it more like a strainer in some ways, or like?
No, you want to get the particles out.
Okay, so it really does take a
filter. Like you can wash. Some of them are like washable. You could probably use,
like the reusable
like a jelly bag. I'm gonna assume.
Yeah,
use a jelly bag, or some like muslin. You just want to get, because there will be little particles in there.
Okay.
And depending on the tree, some of those trees create sugar granules. Like I think it was silver maple creates granules where maple sugar maples don't. But and you're going to want to have possibly the hydrometer. We didn't use one.
And that just basically gives you the accuracy of where you're at.
Yeah. And one of the reasons a homesteader might want one of those is because if you don't get it to a certain temperature, it will spoil or get mold easier. If you get it above that, it starts to crystallize.
Okay.
That can be fixed, kind of like honey. That can be fixed.
Heat it up and
If you're selling, you're actually required to get very specific, and you'll want one of those.
Sure.
But and then you're gonna want something like jars to store it in. And then I said a good book and some fun conversation because you spend a lot of time
You're gonna be
standing
sitting
there
around that
boiling
fire a
down.
lot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is ideal. I mean, it's cold outside. You got a nice fire going. You're all sitting around. Just yeah. I mean, I think it'd be a good little
Oh, it's a
fun thing to
blast.
hang.
And
You
it's
get 3 or 4 or 5 people sitting around, just like sitting around a campfire and enjoying the process at that point. Taste testing every once in a while just to see where we're at in the process, and
that's the best part. You boil it down just a little bit and drink that sugar.
sugar
It's
water.
amazing.
Yeah,
And it's great to make tea out of, but it's actually not terribly cold because usually it's about 40 degrees.
yeah, just perfect for like a fire and sitting around.
Yeah, it's fun. That was kind of our favorite process. Okay, so here's the other thing. We kind of talked about this before we started. I like to boil it over an open fire. So we did ours with an open fire because I like the smoky flavor.
Yeah.
Some people like just that pure maple syrup flavor. So then you're probably going to want to do it on something like a propane stove or
Well, I see a lot of
your
people
normal
setting up.
set it like on top of a wood stove where that
Yeah, I see the
smoke is
barrel. They'll
contained.
take like a barrel and they'll
Yeah.
get those wood stove kits and they'll flatten the top of the barrel, or they may even make a thing where the pan's set down inside the barrel, the top of the barrel. And then those kits you can pick up at any like Rural King or TSC or something. And they make a 55-gallon barrel into a wood stove.
Yep.
And then they'll put just a flue that's just maybe a few feet tall on the back so it gets away the smoke away from it. But I've seen that set up many times. I have one of those in my garage. If you don't want
that smoky flavor, and obviously if you're selling it, you're not going to want that. But
right.
And so that's what we do. And then the process for ideally, you may have wanted to start last summer identifying trees because the different kinds of maple trees can be kind of hard to. Their bark looks the same. A lot of them, their leaves are really close to each other. But you can do it. And you're going to want to measure the trees. Like I said before, you don't want them any less than 10 inches in diameter.
How long does it take to boil down 40 gallons to 1 gallon?
I couldn't tell you because we did it over a period of days.
It took days.
Well, only because we were gathering on a smaller scale. So we would gather and boil down because your sap, if it's not kept cold.
Well, you had a stock pot. You filled up a stock pot with the sugar water and you started boiling. How long did it take to basically boil that one stock pot down to the right amount?
Oh, not that long, like a couple of hours.
Okay.
You don't want it to be going too hot either because you're going to burn the bottom of your pan, which I have done.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so what it is so the syrup needs to be 66 to 67% sugar or 7.1 degrees above your boiling water temperature. And that's how we did it, is I used a candy thermometer.
Okay. So you just kept tab of the temperature. And
so for us here, which that's going to depend, like if you're in the mountains and stuff, I think your boiling temperature changes.
Well, how did you control that in a sense on an open fire? Do you just raise the pan a little bit or?
Yes. So we either raise the pan or we, because we were using a rocket stove, we were using little tiny pieces of wood. So we would just use less of it, or we would, my husband had made a diffuser.
Yeah.
Just a metal piece that we would slide in between to slow it down. Cause sometimes that thing we were really surprised how hot that got. And we were using old trim. We were burning old trim. So that's how we did it, is we got the, syrup up to that 219 ish degrees.
Yeah.
And that was how we knew he had our finished product.
I would say too, as far as just knowing when to get after this and the weather's right, you're probably getting like some local Facebook groups that are talking about it. And they're probably everybody be like a community and they're like, this weekend's going to be perfect. Let's do it. And
you usually start seeing people say that, I think our weather's starting to look good. Yeah. And that kind of gets me to the, there's like a little bit of folklore here, which I posted a link to an article, which I found really fun.
It didn't look like folklore to me. In a way, it kind of made sense. I mean, it sounded pretty scientific to me that it would work. I mean, it was using the moon.
Yeah. So there's actually something called a sap moon or a sugar moon or a maple moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's usually the March moon. I think it is the March moon, but I posted an interesting article from the Farmers Museum about that. And then there is this group on this page on Facebook that I followed called the Northmen. And
Yeah, I seen that post. Yeah.
and that I got to figure out how to get that I couldn't get it to do it last night, but I wanted to post a link to that here so people could go read it.
I'll find it and put it in the notes. Yeah.
One of the things that they used in old times was cutting down trees at specific stages of the moon cycle, because just like the tide, there would be less water in the wood. So the wood would be harder and wouldn't need to dry out. And apparently they use some of that to tap trees and knowing that they're going to produce more on certain
Makes sense
days.
to me. I mean, the moon controls the tides and things like that. And you got the water flow of the tree. Now, the trick would be, is the moon, is that moon cycle coinciding with the weather at the time? Because that would be more important, I think. But if you happen to get both, that's probably the years you get like maximum amount of syrup, when it would be both of them things hit at the same time, where you're getting that flow. And yeah, that would be make the ideal situation probably, but it probably wouldn't be a guarantee every year. Ideal. Yeah.
So the resources that I have are one of them is Practical Self-Reliance. That article,
I like that blog.
It's a really good article. And if you read that article, he talks about the 27 different trees. He talks about different things, but he also, don't quit when you get to the end of the article. There is like, I don't even know how many comments, tons of comments with really good information of people that have done some pretty different trees. So
this is the reason I turned comments back on my site, by the way, because you can get so many knowledgeable people adding to your content below. And I didn't use comments for the longest time because I just didn't want to deal with the negativity. Sometimes there it is, but I think the value you get from it is so amazing, because you're right. I have been to so many blog posts where I got more from the comments below than I did from the actual post. And you know what? I'm not so stubborn to think I know more than most people. So let the experts give their piece, because they will give you some value in those comments.
Yeah. And then I gave, that was the other thing. I found this fascinating. So one of the things we kind of skipped over because we went to the process was birch trees in Norway, Sweden, and Canada. They actually produce a bit later. So if you wanted to tap your birch trees, a lot of people will tap their maple trees. And then about the same time that is ending, they then tap their birch trees.
Or so they come in a different
totally
time.
Different flavor. But those are 110 to 1.
I was going to ask you about that too, as the flavor differences. I bet there is quite a bit.
There is. Apparently there's there was one tree here. I'm trying to remember which one it's. Oh, the Rocky Mountain. Nope, it wasn't that one. The northern, the box elder. I don't know if we have box elder here. I am getting closer to Canada, so maybe we do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But box elder apparently has a flavor like sorghum syrup.
Oh, wow. I would think the walnut would be completely different. I don't know, but it seems like it would have to be.
I've never had it, but I bet it would be.
Yeah, it just seems like it would have to be.
So that, oh boy, now I got to try to pronounce this again. Somebody's going to correct me.
That's fine.
Barossa, that maple tree that is in Korea, they actually do not boil that down. They drink the sap. Just the sugar
water, okay.
Yeah, they drink the sap, and they go on binges for the health benefits of drinking the sap, and they'll drink the sap like by the gallons and sit in a hot room.
Just basically a sweet water, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's full of, and I posted an article that I found. It's full of antioxidants.
I bet if you would use something like the sugar water and maybe cook certain things in that too, to add a sweet profile to things. I bet that would be a good way to cook certain things to give it a sugar.
Maple, your butternut, especially desserts and soup.
Oh yeah, put it in with some squash or something. Put it in some kind of a. Oh man.
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to mention. In North America, it's also becoming popular to just jar up the sap and can it and sell the maple water or birch water. Because it's got medicinal benefits. People use it to make, now they will make, and I put a link in here how to make maple vinegar. So people will make vinegar out of it.
Oh, I've never even heard of that. That's
I haven't either. And now it's becoming pretty popular for people to make seltzers. So they'll take the maple water or the birch water and they'll use like a soda stream or something like that, add carbonation to it.
Ah, yeah. Make it a little
that would be pretty
sweet
good.
soda. Yeah. That's more natural.
And it's not super sweet. I've had the tree, the water right out of the tree. It's, you can definitely taste a little bit of sweetener, but it's not.
You could boil that down 20% and really you could probably just get it right where it's perfect for you, even if you want to boil it down just a little bit, even, and get it a little stronger sweetness to it. I love the idea of syrup, honey, sorghum, beet sugar. I mean, these natural things you can use, more natural ways of getting, the sweetness of things versus processed sugar and corn syrup and, all this garbage. I just think it's such a better way. I mean, we all have a sweet tooth. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it, but I think if you could satisfy that sweet tooth with more natural things, it's got the health benefits have got to be.
Oh yeah. The minerals and the antioxidants in these, I think, far outweigh, just like, your high fructose corn syrup.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the birch tree apparently, and the palm tree, they apparently use those a lot to make like liquor and wine.
Okay.
So, and then some of them use them traditionally for medicine, because apparently there is some studies that show that the water actually helps certain stomach problems and all sorts of things. But I have links to the practical self-reliance on medicinal benefits of the sap of many different trees. And then I've got a couple of sites here. Just one of them just has some really I found some really interesting tree site that has all sorts of information about several different trees. I provided in here Maine's manual for sugar maple making, the syrup making. And of course they have it down pat. And this is a pretty concise, huge link that's got several links within it to books and videos and exactly how to do that whole process. I found another one like that from Alaska for birch trees, because Alaska doesn't have very many maple trees. So I found Alaska has a similar site with all of the information about tapping birch trees. And then I put a few Amazon links in here. I'll be honest with you. I put them in here so you could see them. We purchased our stuff through Lehman's. It's just,
I bet you paid
really
more
good
for it.
Quality.
Yeah, it's good quality, but they are a little up there on the price.
They are.
Yeah.
So I posted a link to Lehman's so you could see all of the offerings, but then a couple of Amazon.
Honestly, I see the stuff locally though. I mean,
I was just going to say, our Ace Hardware, our Blaine's, our Tractor Supply,
our Rural King has it. I see it. Our Rural King
they'll have stuff. Last year they ran out, so if you're thinking about doing this, you might want to consider doing that. And then at the end, I put information on tapping palm trees.
We know nothing about that, but some of you might be down yonder where you got those things. I get to see them every great once in a while, but that's about it.
Yeah, I know. I could go for one right now.
Yeah, me too.
It's been cloudy for days. But so trapping palm trees. And I am sure there's people out there that do this for a living and they can help you. Oh, I know. One of the things I was going to mention was if you don't want to tap, there are sometimes some of these farms or somebody that does these. One year we could not tap. We just went out and picked up. We took our 55-gallon barrel and they just gave us the sap.
Really?
And we brought it home and boiled it down.
Wow.
So it's a great way to start without doing the tree part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if here in Indiana I mean, there's definitely people who do it here, but I don't think it's as near big of a thing here as it is up where you're at. Here. It is. The more north you go, it definitely east, northeast, and north. It's definitely a big thing. What was that book I turned you on to here a while back about the couple? What was the name of that? What's the name of that book? I loved it. It's a great book. It's the couple who spent like 40 years living a self-sufficient life. I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Nightstand.
Yeah, it's right. It's probably behind me on my bookshelf here.
It's red. I remember that.
I'm trying to look for it and I didn't see it. And it's the Good Life.
Yes.
Called The Good Life. I just seen it back here. But anyway, they were really big on tapping trees. And in that book, there's a whole section about that, about their experiences with that and how it just, and they were selling it though. That was part of their income, that they could buy the stuff to do for their buildings and things like that, to build their own house and build their own barns and buildings and things. And they actually had a whole like building dedicated.
Oh, they call them sugar shacks.
Yeah, they built. They built really nice, but they built out of stone. I think
one of our schools here, we have a couple of private schools, and a couple of our private schools have sugar shacks.
Yeah,
they do it with the kids. Yeah,
it's a big part of that book too, and what they were doing for basically.
And Laura Ingalls, they actually talk about sugaring in one of their books.
It sounds amazingly fun, and I would love really to get with a bunch of people who are doing it. And that's would be another good way to do it. Just find people who are doing it and see if they need some help. Just carrying buckets and see the process and get to sit around the fire with them and boil it down and just enjoy that process. I would love to partake in that locally before I would ever even do it, because I don't have any tappable trees on my property. But if I knew some people who did, maybe get into it. And, my biggest concern was that, I would not want to hurt the trees. And it sounds like it's done so much that if it was a big issue with hurting trees, I think there'd be a lot more said about it. We'd have a lot of
dead trees up.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's just not a big issue.
We have maple syrup farms, I guess is what you called them, that have been passed down from generation to generation here using the same trees. So I don't think it's an issue.
And it's absolutely a process of, a lot of boiling down. You should
probably, if you're going to get into it, you should probably really dig into that deep and know it. I don't know if it's something like when you prune your tree, you should be cleaning your pruners between. I would guess it might be something you would want to consider.
I think so. Maybe give them a spray of
peroxide,
something like peroxide solution. And like I do that with my pruners.
Yeah. So maybe I'll try to find somebody that does this professionally and have them on. That would be really fun. Especially
it'd be a fun deeper dive on the regular show. Yeah.
It is really fun. I really encourage you to either find a way to participate in the process or try it. I mean, I would be interested in, I did not find any of this information, but I think you can. Don't cactus have a lot of water?
I think so, but I don't know if it's like
I just thought of that. Like when
I don't know if it's something you could make a syrup out of though.
I don't either.
I think it's more of I thought it was more of a pure water, like just regular water. I don't know.
I have no idea, and it might be. The other thing is I looked up agave, but agave is more of a bush.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's similar to the palm, where you kind of basically pull the whole thing to make the
There's a lot of things we don't know about different climates and whatnot. I mean,
especially
people could probably tell us some things about that.
We're in like this little Great Lakes corner of the world.
Yeah, even me. I mean, I'm south of it, but I've definitely experienced some of the, the cold coming off. Like we get a lot of the moisture coming down from the lakes and things like that for our snow and things like that. So we definitely get a little bit of effect from it. Well, that's some great information there, Rachel. I think some people will get some use out of it, and I hope some of you maybe you do this, and you can throw a comment in there if something maybe different or a different take, or maybe some more information about it that you've found useful or that you can just share. Yeah, I find it fascinating, and now you really got me wanting to engage in it. Not maybe so much doing it without. I'd love to help somebody do it, and just get a little bit of a. Just to see the process and maybe just enjoy it a little bit, and then maybe make a determination it's something that I'd want to pursue off my property, because it's not something I can do on my property. I don't have the trees, but I mean, there's a lot of small here in Indiana. It's funny because we have like field woods. It's like there's always these 1 to 5 acre plots of woods that are in between all the fields.
Right.
And they don't do anything with those. I mean, you can go squirrel hunting in them or whatever, maybe deer hunting in a lot of them. Farmers own these little plots. They're just 1 to 5 acres. I don't think there's a lot of people doing tapping around here. And we have a lot of maple and birch, not so much birch. We have a lot of maple here. I don't see a ton of birch. We have some. There's a ton of walnut. There's a ton of sycamore and these other things, which aren't ideal. It doesn't sound like, but I don't know. I think it would probably be easy to find some farmers that would let you tap their trees in those little plots of woods that are just scattered all over the place.
Especially if you provided them with the product, the finished
Yeah, say
product.
we'll bring you some when we get done doing this, and they would. I think there
that
would be
was
a
what we
lot
ended
of
up doing with our neighbor.
Yeah.
Like we were like, because we told her that we were going to be tapping our trees, and then she goes, "Well, I have one right there. You want to use it?" I'm like, "Yeah." We didn't even ask her. She offered it up, and of course we gave her some.
Yeah, and you can just make that offer, and I bet there's a lot of these farmers around here that would be like, "Yeah, have at it. I'd love to have a couple gallons of syrup when this is all said and done," and you hook them up, and they would really love that. So sounds like a really fun process.
It was great with the kids. The kids had a blast doing it. Our kids, of course, now it's just us, and my husband and I love to just sit around the fire and read. So
that's fun. I bet that your neighbors all like see you doing that too, and they're fascinated by it. I mean, you're out there.
I think some of them for years thought we were crazy, but now they're all like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Especially now that I bring boxes of stuff around the neighborhood and toss tomatoes at people, and
not like at them, but you give them to them.
Right. I would give them a lot of stuff. And
yeah, well, that sounds great. Yeah, well, you've definitely upped my curiosity on it to a whole nother level, and so thanks for sharing that with us, Rachel. And
all right,
it's been a while since I got to interview you. It's been a few years since actually we do the podcast together, but this time I actually got to kind of like interview you, which was kind of fun.
That was kind of fun. Yeah, there's a few things I do that that you don't do, and so it is kind of fun.
Yeah,
once in a while, delve into those.
We'll have to tap into some of the other things here later. Maybe give you another interview or two on some of those things you're doing.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it's mostly we're doing this homestead style, certainly not sale style or up to USDA standards or the state.
Well, what homesteader wouldn't enjoy having 2 or 3 gallons of syrup in their cabinet?
My husband had pancakes and maple syrup this morning.
From your syrup. Yeah, that's
actually, this syrup wasn't ours. I bought it from a local person because we ate ours long ago.
You need to find some more trees to tap.
I know. Well, we had the one die. The carpenter ants killed the one.
Do you have a bunch at your new property? Out of curiosity.
I do.
But it would be bad because you have to change them buckets out so often. You're so far away.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, that would make it tough for you.
Do we take a week off?
Yeah. That would be interesting.
Go out there, because what we have out there, I need to take out my big measuring tape. I have no idea the diameter of these trees, but you cannot even begin to put your arms around them.
So definitely three tappers.
So in the old days up here, when farmers would buy a piece of property, they would typically line the roadways or the 2 tracks with sugar maples. They would plant them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forget what it is. It's like 16 or 1,800 feet along one side of our property. Every, 50 feet, there's a maple tree. And then on the other side of the property, because we're on a corner, it's like, I forgot, 700 or something like that. There's every 50 feet a maple tree. So we have sugar maples, like 30, huge ones. Wow. Now, part of them are dying because they're old. They're well over 100 years old. But we have new babies growing up in the woods. Some of them aren't big enough to tap, but
your next 30 years of your life, you're going to be getting a lot of syrup from that property.
I hope so. And I hope, but like I said, some of these trees, out of those trees, several are dead. They're starting to fall down.
Ones, and the ones that are still going. And you're going to definitely have
several that I identified over the summer. I spent the summer identifying.
Maple grows pretty quick too. Maple grows pretty fast. I mean, I know around here I've planted some, actually, it's funny. I do have a maple tree. I forgot. I got one by my pond, but I keep it cut down. It's more of a decoration. I cut it and prune it like a decoration tree next to my pond. But man, that thing grows so fast. I have to prune that thing like crazy to keep it down because it shoots up several feet. I mean, every year it grows nuts.
Well, and then if you consider the fact, so those are actual sugar maples. If you consider the fact that you can tap all of these trees.
Yeah, I think the one I have there is a silver maple.
I think almost every one of a considerable amount of our woods can be tapped.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't big enough yet, though.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Growing. You're going to be sharing that process as time goes over the years.
Like you said, though, the hard part is collection.
Yeah, for you right now, you're so far away from that property that it's hard to get. You wouldn't want to just keep going back and forth and changing it. Now, if you could like somehow set 55-gallon barrels underneath each one of them trees and run it in, let it go all week.
Yeah, we could do that. I actually have, funny enough, I actually have a shower that I bought, like a handheld shower for when we camp
Like
out
outdoor
there.
showers, yeah.
And it's, oh, what do you call it? A cigarette lighter. You can plug it into a cigarette lighter, and it will it pumps really well. So we could probably actually use that to pump 2 smaller buckets and take them home.
Yeah, you could do that.
We probably wouldn't want to take the tractor back out there with snow and stuff.
Find you about a dozen food grade 55-gallon barrels and stick them out there and run some taps.
Yeah, we have
in there
4 out there right now, but not a dozen.
Yeah, you could definitely get some and get them tapping and get them going. I bet you.
It might be something we do. I should talk to my husband about that, because even if we just used what we had, that's still the potential for us to have just a couple of gallons of maple syrup. And with just the 2 of us now, we don't need, like when you have kids, you go through a lot of maple syrup. But
we go through a lot of maple syrup here, but we buy it because we don't.
Yeah, we go through a lot of honey.
We do too.
I bought 10 gallons of raw honey from a local beekeeper, and we've already gone through 1.
I just have a bit of a sweet tooth, but I just like to use more natural things. I don't like corn syrup,
Yeah.
So
did you see that my gardener sells sugar beets?
No, I didn't see that, but I've grown them. I grow them here.
Have you sugar beets?
Yeah. Yep.
Have you ever processed them?
Down to sugar? No.
Okay.
I just eat them.
Because that would be an interesting
They're delicious just to eat. I mean,
Are they?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think so. Really good. I just bake them. I roast them in the oven.
If I buy sugar, I prefer it to be cane sugar, because it used to be that wasn't GMO. Well, now they've GMO cane sugar and beet sugar. So,
but that was, I mean, if you read any old stuff from early American history, I mean, beet sugar was huge. I mean, that was just what they sweetened everything with. And it's a thing. So, but we've gotten completely away from that. Nobody does that anymore. Yeah.
I think people are starting to consider some of that.
We found better ways. Okay. Well, folks, there you have it. We'll jump off here, but hopefully that sparked your curiosity and made you want to get out there and tap some trees. Or if you're already doing it, maybe you can teach us something. So share it with us. We'd be happy to always learn from folks that do it more than us or better than us, for sure. But Rachel, sounds like you're doing pretty good job, and we'll get those links that you shared in the notes. Until next time, happy homesteading. God bless.
And grow where you're planted.